So I just want to say that up front that I cannot offer that. How many people do you have with you?
We have 7 total.
Okay. Well, maybe I don't know. Certainly the women in the room are going to get this little incentive that I'm going to offer for making the time tonight. But I may have to let you guys in on the incentive as well. But since you guys are making time tonight, but anyway, I appreciate you guys being here tonight and taking time out of your schedule and driving from wherever you come from, no matter how short or how close. And I am going to talk a little bit about booking from this standpoint. I don't know if you remember when you first got into the business, and when you first got into the business, it almost came almost natural to you. And a piece of that is building the belief and the excitement about the company. So what I want to do tonight, I'm going to do 3 things specifically, is tell you a little bit about myself, but also not only so you know about who your vice president is, but you've all got to start to learn to tell your story. I'm going to be starting something here in the new year, and when I see you, I'm going to be looking at my watch, and I'm going to be able to see if you can tell your story or 1 minute or less. This is not your business commercial. This is your story. People like stories. People get into your business and people book parties with you when they learn about you. That's why every Sunday night, 9 times out of 10, there's a made-for-TV movie because it's a real story. We love stories. People aren't all that interested in facts. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story, teach you how to do your story. So that's number 1. Number 2, I'm going to talk about, we keep saying we are unique in the industry because of social media, and it's true, but can anybody explain that any further? Does anybody understand what we've done here? Can you do it in 3 minutes or less? Not only for telling somebody else why that's important. In other words, it's great to be unique, but what does that benefit somebody? But I want you to be able to leave here tonight, and certainly in 5 minutes or less, but as you get good at it, you'll be able to explain in 3 minutes or less to somebody why you want to be with a company that is involved in social media. In other words, what challenge have we solved by going to social media? So that's the second thing I'm going to do here tonight. But I'm going to do it for a second reason is because I think when you understand why we've done this, all of a sudden you'll walk through the door and you'll say, well, hot damn, of course it's a good company. They've solved some business issues that are going on in the world today, and especially in our industry of direct selling. So I'm going to talk about that. And then following that, we'll talk about the new programs, and if there are questions, I'll answer questions. But what I think I'm going to do, specifically as it relates to booking, I think I'm going to help you build your belief. I think I'm going to help gain excitement. And I'm telling you, really, this business, whether you're booking or sponsoring, it comes natural when you really believe it. In other words, if you're always having to sell yourself, then you're never going to sell anybody else. But if you just naturally believe it, like I heard you guys talk here tonight, whether it's about the, go get 'em girls, whether it's about the, the distribution center, when you sort of have that in you, it just sort of comes out naturally. So you don't have to use the old, two-fisted closing technique to get them to book your parties and that. You're just you're sharing some things that you believe in, and people buy into that real easily. So let me just start with my story. Before I tell my story, I want you to learn how to tell your story. Now, you have to have a 1-minute version of your story. And your 1-minute version of this, how many people in here do not want to be a pushy consultant? I mean, in other words, that's one of the first things they say. I'm going to teach you right now. I'm going to teach you right now how to never be a pushy consultant. And if you've got to learn to tell your story in 1 minute or less. You say, well, how does that work, Jerry? Well, here's the deal. You meet somebody new somewhere, and you take an interest in them, and you talk to them. At some point in that time, if that person is half a human being, and if that person is anybody you'd even want involved in your business, at some point the conversation is going to come to you and they're going to ask you what?
What do you do?
What do you do? Right, and you know what? Most of you probably now sort of, or you say something that, it's sort of, it's not smooth, it's not natural. You've got to learn to tell your story. And you've got to have a 1-minute version so that when you tell your 1-minute version of your story, at the end of that, when you tell your story and you shut up, if that person does not ask you another question, guess what? They're not interested. In other words, when you tell your 1-minute story and you'll see the 3 questions you answer, at the end of that, if they're not interested, then you back away from the business. Therefore, you've eliminated being a pushy consultant. But if they ask a question, now all of a sudden you know to start going down the road with them. So here are the 3 questions you've got to answer to tell your story. Number 1, What were you doing before you found Willow House? What were you doing? And they need to know where you've come from, because one of the first things people will do to talk themselves out of listening to you is, well, of course you could do it because, you know, you can stand up in front of a room and give tickets away, or you can do it. What they need to hear is, I was a stay-at-home mom, I was a nurse, I was a realtor, I still am a realtor, I work full-time. They need to know that you're just like them in some way, shape, or form. So what were you doing before you found Southern Living, or, excuse me, Willow House? Number two, how did you find Willow House? I saw a website, I got a catalog, somebody invited me to a party, my friend cajoled me into coming over for dinner, and whatever it is. How did you find it? And number three, what has happened since? And this is sort of where you put your best foot forward. Even if you've been in the business, only 2 weeks, the third question of what has happened since is, I have one party booked already. I'm excited about doing that. I've got some online sales. For some people, it may be it was the trips that I earned. I've been to the leadership experience. You've got to say what has happened since. So let me tell you my story. Now, this is going to be my 3-minute version.